Then we come to some of the other things. I know we're talking about poverty and corruption in general, but when we, again, looking at what is resonating out there in society, things like the abolition of the Internal Security Act, it's, you know, I mean, the law's been passed, just let me correct, the law's been passed, but the ISA is still with us. It has not yet been abolished because the new law has not yet come into force. So, you know, tomorrow, as Dr. Dennis said, I could still be arrested under the ISA. And go back to Kamunting, where my father was born in Taipei, so it's like going home. So I know Sam. I think Sam was here. I mean, this year, Kong Beng, things like that. They were involved in 2009 when the government opened up some of the dialogue to civil society on whether the ISA should be abolished or it should be amended. And in 2009, you're still talking of it being amended rather than abolished. So I know CCM was there, NECF was there. But then, you know, the question is, how much a dialogue does the government do, and how much do we push the government to have dialogue with the institutional Christian community in this country? So whether it's NECF, whether it's CCM, whether it's the Catholic Conference of Bishops, and together within that another umbrella of the Christian Federation of Malaysia, how much of that, do we have dialogues? Do we have dialogues, for example, on peaceful assembly? I mean, I am coming to Bersih, as you can see, clean, free and fair elections. I think it would be remiss of me to stand up here and not talk a little bit about that. But the idea of peaceful assembly, whether or not churches were supporting things like freedom of peaceful assembly. You've got a Roman Catholic priest at the moment, Paulino Miranda, who's in charge for illegal assembly, standing outside his church, or the land in front of his church in Shah Alam, when the days when the Roman Catholic Church was having a lot of struggle trying to build a new church in Shah Alam. So this happened a few years ago, but the wheels of Malaysian justice wind very slowly. So he's only now been brought into court. And of course, he's very bravely said that even if he's fined for peaceful assembly, illegal assembly, he's not going to pay the fine. He wants to go to jail, just to make a point. And I spoke to Archbishop Murphy Pakiam a couple of nights ago, and he said, "Oh, if he wants to go to jail, it's good. Yeah, it's good." But that would make an interesting statement. Clean, free, and fair elections. How many of us in our churches, in our communities, and try to encourage people to come out, or is that a taboo subject in your church? And if so, why? I put up a picture in my Facebook of Bishop Mun Hing and Assistant Bishop Jason Salraj holding up a Bersih 3 t-shirt. And I think of all the pictures I've ever put up on my Facebook, that got the greatest number of hits, because they thought it was really great that here was at least a leader of a church in this country outwardly showing his support for it. Although he didn't come and walk, he said, "Never mind, I'll just pray for you, Andrew." Smart guy, yes. That's why he's bishop and I'm only the legal advisor. So it's issues like that. And then some of the other things where perhaps we don't really say too much, although in terms of refugees and asylum seekers, some of our church-based organizations are heavily involved in providing care to and education to refugees and asylum seekers, because government does absolutely nothing and just relies on non-governmental organizations to do that. And then some of the other things, death penalty. Have you ever heard a statement about whether or not we should continue to have the death penalty in Malaysia? Something, somebody would say totally outside the scope of the church, construction of the mass rapid transit system, and how that's affecting the lives of people, how people's houses are being acquired, or things like that, and how it will affect communities in terms of development, in terms of planning. I think that's one of the things that, again, when it came to the draft action plan for Kuala Lumpur and then the draft action plan for Petaling Jaya in terms of planning, how many of our churches actually got involved in that, looking at how the government's plans for future development was going to affect communities in which our churches are located. Because that has, as some of you will know, an impact in terms of socio-economic development, and also about poverty. So where was the church in all that? So I go to the last two, poverty and housing. That, you know, when was the last time the church actually talked about poverty? When was the last time you heard a sermon in your church about poverty and poverty eradication, or affordable or adequate or appropriate housing? Sometimes you think, well, what should the church say about? These are not the traditional church issues of freedom of religion, land for cemeteries, and education, and things like that. But this is the challenge to us, to speak out on these particular issues, because there are sections of our society, sections of our communities, for whom these are real live issues. And we see lots of human rights groups attending to these issues. And one of the things that I feel very convicted about when I work alongside quite a lot of these human rights groups is to see how passionate they are, how determined they are, how they are prepared to literally put their lives on the line. I mean, I think I've lost count of how many of my human rights colleagues who at some point in time have been at least detained by the police. I'm still waiting for that joy. But you know, they do, and they say, you know, and they don't earn very much. They are either fresh university graduates or even seasoned individuals. But they regularly put their lives on the line, put money where their mouth is, whatever analogy, whatever saying you want to use, and you know, they are there. And a lot of them are not Christians. A lot of them are perhaps secular humanists. You know, but for them, it's a passion. For them, it has become like what Prime Minister Badawi said, you know, the new religion. But the passion is there, and I don't see that similar passion in Christians. Not a lot, okay? And that convicts me quite a lot. Why is it that the Christian church isn't as passionate about some of these issues as non-believers? Why is it that they are driven so much more when we have the truth and we have the love of Jesus Christ, we understand the mandate and mission of God? Why is it that we are so less passionate about these issues? And then, of course, LGBT, which is, you know, a way of the government trying to sort of moralize from its perspective. And what do we say about them? How do they fit into the whole economy of society? So these are some of the public issues that are there. And I've listed them so that as we look at, I know we're looking again at poverty and corruption, but you know, as we try to identify with or seek to speak into society, these are perhaps some of their concerns. And what is, and the question that I leave you with at the end of my presentation is, what is the church doing about some of these issues? How is it, if at all, contributing to the debate and the dialogue and the discussion on these issues? Because that attitude will also inform how we